You're standing on the walls of Syracuse in 212 BCE. Below you, the most powerful navy on Earth, Rome, is closing in. Dozens of warships packed with soldiers, siege equipment, and 2 centuries of military confidence. Your city has a few thousand defenders, a modest wall, and one 75-year-old mathematician who has asked everyone to please bring him their mirrors. This does not inspire confidence, but the old man has been building things, strange things, cranes that pick up warships and drop them, catapults calibrated to distances most engineers couldn't calculate, and now, apparently, a device that uses focused sunlight to set Roman ships on fire from the shore, a death ray. In 212 BCE, built by a man whose other hobbies included calculating the volume of spheres and taking baths. This is the story of Archimedes, and whether or not his most famous weapon actually worked is one of the oldest unsolved arguments in the history of science. Let's start with what we know for certain, because the confirmed stuff is already absurd. Archimedes of Syracuse was born around 287 BCE on the island of Sicily. By the time Rome showed up at his doorstep, he was already one of the most accomplished mathematicians and engineers in the ancient world. He'd calculated pi to a precision that wouldn't be matched for centuries. He'd worked out the mathematics of buoyancy, the famous bathtub moment. He'd designed compound pulleys, water screws, and mechanical devices that made other engineers look like they were working with sticks. And then Rome declared war on Syracuse, and Archimedes became a weapons engineer. The Roman general Marcus Claudius Marcellus brought a massive fleet to take the city in 214 BCE. The siege lasted 2 years. 2 years against a single city. Rome, the empire that had already conquered most of the Mediterranean, spent 2 years trying to take one walled town on the coast of Sicily. The reason was the old man on the wall. Ancient sources describe Archimedes' defensive machines in terms that sound like science fiction, written by people who hadn't invented science fiction yet. Polybius, one of the most reliable historians of the ancient world, describes catapults that could be adjusted to hit targets at specific distances, long range for approaching ships, short range for troops at the base of the walls. That alone was remarkable. Most ancient catapults were point in the general direction and hope technology. Archimedes built precision artillery 2,000 years before the concept of precision artillery existed. Then there were the claws. Plutarch describes massive crane-like devices mounted on the walls that could reach over the fortifications, grab a Roman warship by the prow, lift it partially out of the water, and then drop it. Imagine commanding a warship and watching the boat in front of you get picked up by an invisible arm and flipped like a toy in a bathtub. That is the kind of thing that makes you reconsider your career in the military. Roman soldiers reportedly became so terrified of the walls that if a rope or a beam appeared above the battlements, entire units would break and run before anything even happened. Marcellus himself reportedly joked that Archimedes was using his ships to ladle water from the sea, like a giant serving soup. Nobody was laughing on the ships. Now, the death ray. This is the claim that has launched 1,000 arguments. Several ancient sources, including Lucian, Galen, and later Byzantine writers, describe Archimedes using an arrangement of mirrors, or polished bronze shields, to focus sunlight onto Roman ships and set them on fire from a distance. The idea is simple in theory. Take a large number of flat reflective surfaces, angle each one so that it bounces sunlight toward the same point, and concentrate enough thermal energy on a single target to reach ignition temperature. It's the same principle as a magnifying glass burning a leaf, except scaled up to a warship using bronze mirrors and Mediterranean sunlight. The problem is that simple in theory and physically achievable in 212 BCE are not the same sentence. Here's where it gets genuinely interesting, because people have been trying to prove or disprove this for centuries, and not casually, with real experiments, real mirrors, and real boats. In 1747, the French naturalist Georges Louis Leclerc, Comte de Buffon, built an array of 168 flat mirrors and successfully ignited a wooden plank at about 67 meters. It worked. It actually worked. But the conditions were ideal. A clear day, a stationary target, no wind, and a target that was dry, thin, and primed to burn. In 2005, a team of MIT students tried to replicate the experiment for a television show. They arranged 127 flat mirrors and aimed them at a wooden fishing boat in San Francisco Harbor. After about 10 minutes of sustained focus, the wood began to scorch. A small flame appeared briefly, then a cloud passed in front of the sun and the temperature dropped immediately. Their conclusion: theoretically possible under perfect conditions, but practically useless as a weapon. The target has to hold still. The sky has to remain cloudless. The operators have to maintain precise alignment across dozens of mirrors simultaneously. And the target has to be dry wood, not the waterlogged hull of a warship that's been sitting in the Mediterranean for weeks. The television show Mythbusters tested it twice. Busted both times. So, was it real? Probably not as described. But here's the thing. A working heat ray that sets ships on fire at range and a terrifying, blinding weapon that panics enemy sailors are two very different claims. And the second one is almost certainly true. Think about what it's like to be a Roman sailor rowing toward a walled city. You're already watching ships get grabbed by cranes and flipped. You're taking precision catapult fire from distances you didn't think were possible. And now there's a blinding concentrated beam of light hitting your face and scorching the deck of your ship. You don't know whether the wood is about to catch fire. You don't know what's happening. All you know is the sun is attacking you, and it's coming from the wall. You don't need to actually ignite a ship to win that exchange. You just need the crew to believe you might. Syracuse fell in 212 BCE, not because Archimedes' machines failed, but because the Romans found a section of wall that was undermanned during a festival and climbed over it at night. 2 years of the most advanced defensive engineering the ancient world had ever seen, defeated by a ladder and a holiday. Marcellus had given specific orders that Archimedes be captured alive. He wanted the genius working for Rome. But a Roman soldier found the old man on a street corner, reportedly working on a mathematical diagram in the dirt. Accounts differ on what happened next. In one version, Archimedes said, "Do not disturb my circles." In another, the soldier didn't know who he was. In all versions, the soldier killed him. He was 75, the greatest engineer of the ancient world, murdered by someone who didn't understand what they were looking at. Here's the part that sticks. We still argue about whether the death ray worked. Every few years, another team of engineers or physicists drags out mirrors and tries it again. The experiment keeps getting repeated because the idea is too extraordinary to let go of. That a 75-year-old mathematician in 212 BCE, with nothing but bronze and geometry, built a directed energy weapon 2,000 years before the laser. Probably he didn't. Not the way the legends describe it. But the things he definitely built, the precision catapults, the ship-grabbing claws, the fortifications that held off Rome for 2 years, those are real, those are documented, and they're almost as unbelievable. Next time you adjust a bathroom mirror and accidentally blind yourself with reflected sunlight, consider that 22 centuries ago, a man on a wall in Sicily may have done the same thing to an entire fleet. On purpose. With math. The ships burned or they didn't. But Rome was afraid of one old man. And that part is not a myth.